So this guy called Wess Huff is a Christian historian that was able to obliterate Billy Carson's worldview of Christianity while exposing him for the fraud he is in a recent debate with Billy. I mean, Billy, Billy is someone that heavily relies on forgeries to drive his case. So just about anyone, any Christian who has read as much should be able to put Billy in his place. But unfortunately, Billy has had no debate with any credible Christian that I know of on the subject matter until Wess Huff showed up. So, according to Billy, this was supposed to be a casual, normal discussion, but we all know it turned out to be a humiliating experience for him. It was so humiliating that he threatened to sue anyone who publishes the video. Personally, I think this humiliation was long overdue. Anyways, after the debate was published, Westhoff became an overnight sensation and a celebrity from someone barely known with over just 6,000 followers on YouTube to over 120,000. And I think now he has over 170,000 followers on YouTube in matter of days. That's insane. So this guy began to appear on Christian channels until he appeared on this channel called Capturing Christianity, whose owner hosted Avery alongside Westhoff. Avery, being so ignorant, was thinking to himself, this is the perfect time for me to ask a historian and an expert in ancient manuscript regarding the claims of the Muslims on the perfect preservation of the Quran. This is the perfect timing for this guy to expose and nail Muslims. Subhanallah. I was thinking really that Avery, if he was smart enough, he should seize this opportunity and ask regarding the authenticity of the New Testament, or at the very least, the authors of the four Gospels. And again, if truly Westhoff is an expert on the New Testament, his answer wouldn't have been any different from what we get of, the majority of the Bible, the New Testament Bible scholars. And it reads here that most scholars agree that they are the work of unknown Christians and were composed between 65 to 110 AD. The majority of the New Testament scholars also agree that the Gospels do not contain direct eyewitnesses accounts, and this would have, subhanallah, this would have shattered Avery's worldview, on his claim that they were written by eyewitnesses, these are eyewitnesses account and all that. It continued here saying that but that they present the theologies of communities rather than the testimonies of eyewitnesses. Again, it would have shattered Avery's worldview, and definitely we all know Avery's not gonna ask this question, and it's good for them and it's good for his audience. So if you're still here, don't forget to hit the subscribe button, like and share this video, and if you want to go above and beyond to support this channel, well, the token link will be in the description. So now let's listen to Wes' response to Avery's question on the perfect preservation of the Quran.
Have you looked into the Quranic manuscripts and the claim of perfect preservation? And if so, like, what are your thoughts on really the effect of that message for Muslims, the effect and how powerful it is for them to believe that there's only one Quran while everything else has been corrupted, while we have the holy book that God protected, and then how flimsy is that claim?
Yeah, so I did a talk at a university a number of years ago, and that recording is on my YouTube channel, of what I talk about the controlled transmission of the Quran versus the uncontrolled transmission of the New Testament text. I break down a little bit of that. We have these manuscripts. In fact, one of the papers that I wrote in graduate college was just after the discovery of the Birmingham Quran. And so I contacted some of the people at Birmingham University who were going into looking at that and the textual variants that existed there, particularly in comparison to some other early Quranic manuscripts like the Topkapi manuscript and the Sa'ana palimpsest that have textual variants among their kind of early transmissional texts. But to be totally honest with you, Avery, I don't know what your experience is, but getting into the weeds of that, I often find less effective as just going into the Quran and talking about how the Quran addresses the Torah and Injil, the Gospel and the Torah, and how the author of the Quran does not seem to have any semblance or kind of
You see, this guy said, to be totally honest with you, talking to Avery, referring to Avery, I don't know what your experience is, but getting into the weeds of that, I often find it less effective as just going into the Quran and talking about how the Quran addresses the Torah and the Injil. Subhanallah, subhanallah. Weishaupt unknowingly obliterate Avery and exposed his ignorance. You see, allow me to break this down for you. Weishaupt is saying, if Avery had any experience whatsoever or knows any better, he should have realized that this approach of perfect preservation of the glorious Quran in order to get converts is less effective. And this is why. You see, Wess have mentioned the Birmingham manuscript, which is dated back to 568 to 645 AD. This dating tells us that this manuscript was written during the lifetime of the Prophet ﷺ and probably would have been written or was written by a close companion of the Prophet ﷺ. Let's read what Wikipedia said. This is Wikipedia, and this is an article regarding the Birmingham Quran manuscript. Let's quickly go to the description, and then we scroll a little down and start reading from here. It says the Birmingham leaves now catalogued as Mingana 1572A, folio size 343, blah blah blah, and are written on both sides in a generously scaled and legible script. One 2-page leaf contains verses 17 to 31 of Surah 18 Al-Kahf, while the other leaf, the final 8 verses 91 to 98 of Surah 19, which is Maryam, and the first 40 verses of Surah 20, which is Toha, all in their present day sequence and conforming to the standard text. Listen again. All in their present day sequence and conforming to the standard text. Subhanallah. So we should scroll a little down again. I wouldn't want to waste time here as all these other write-ups are not that relevant. So we will start reading from here, and it reads, although the Quran text witnessed in the two Birmingham leaves almost entirely conforms to the standard text, their orthography, in other words, orthography means the style of writing, differs in respect of the writing, exactly what I said, or omission, in respect to the writing or omission of the silent alif. Arabic script at the time tended to not write out the silent alif, so it was intended for them not to write the silent alif. And it further said here, these facts affirm the prevalent Muslim tradition of Quranic preservation, that, this affirms our claim that the Quran has perfectly been preserved. Remember, that silent alif doesn't add anything to it. Okay, it's just a choice of writing. Okay, we intend not to write the silent alif. Even if you see that written now, it doesn't make any difference. It's still the same. It has the same meaning, the same pronunciation. So going forward, Wess Huff also mentioned the San'a manuscript. When it comes to the San'a manuscript, there's something fundamental we should know, and this is that it is a palimpsest Quran, as it is written on a parchment and comprises of 2 layers, the upper text and the lower text. The upper text is said to entirely conform to the standard Uthmanic Quran in text and in the standard order of surahs or chapters. This needs no further explanation. It is literally the same. That's what they're trying to say here. And then the lower text, which was originally erased and written over by the upper text, but can still be read with the help of ultraviolet light and computer processing, contains many variations from the standard text. Now the question is, why was it erased in the first place? Remember, manuscripts we see here and there are people's notes, and it is not as if it was copied from an original. The Quran was orally transmitted, so people go home and write down what they can remember from it. Probably the owner of this parchment realized the grave mistake he has made on the first writing, so he erased it and wrote the correct one. I mean, here it says the sequence of its chapter corresponds to no known Quranic order. Obviously, this person was just writing just the way he remembered or the way he wished, before he finally, it dawns on him that, okay, this is really wrong and this has to do with the Quran. You would have to write it orderly, and one shouldn't compromise when writing it. So he erased it and wrote what was correct. Again, you would know that these kinds of errors are common, especially if you are familiar with what we call Musabaqah. Musabaqah is a competition for Quran memorizers. This is done to test the strength of their memorization. Here you would see people skip or flip verses, change words, for example, ta'alamun to ya'lamun, or faman to waman, and so on. They pronounced it that way because they thought that's how it is until they were corrected. Because in Musabaqah, when you make a mistake, you will be corrected. So I'm going to use myself as an example. You see, back in the day, I used to think Surah Al-Quraysh used to be Ila fi Quraysh, until I realized that that's not how to pronounce it. That's not the proper way of reading it. I omitted a letter called Lam. It is meant to be Li-ila fi Quraysh, Li-ila fi Quraysh. And also in that same surah, in the second verse, I used to think that it is read as Ila fihim rihlata shita'i was sayf, rihlata shita'i was sayf. This is what I thought it was, until I was corrected that no, the shita there comes with a definite article, alif and lam, which makes the sheen there appear with a shadda. Since it's a hurufu shamsiya, the best way to recite it properly is to join the ta and shin together, else I will be omitting the shadda on the letter shin. Hence the correct pronunciation is ila fihim rihlata shita'i was sayf. رحلة الشتاء والصيف. So you join the ta and the shin together to get it right. Else you would be missing or omitting the shadda. So now imagine me writing these verses the way I thought these verses were pronounced, something like this, and someone discovering this 1,000 years from now. It will be a grave mistake comparing my errors to the standard Quran that we have, and that's the case of the Sana'a manuscript. So what's funny is the Sana'a manuscript corresponds with the standard Uthmani Quran, but the people have chosen to bring back to life the erased lower text just to make the whole thing controversial. This is why when Islamophobes discuss the Sana'a manuscript, all they talk about is the lower text and its many variations. Again, this was why it was erased in the first place, probably by the writer himself. In summary, West realized Avery is ignorant and chose not to answer the question, as it will bring more legitimacy to our claim that the Quran is perfectly preserved, unlike the Bible. Inshallah, I will continue the response in another video, so stay tuned for the part 2 of this video. I remain your brother Abdul. Catch you in the next one.